Don't really think I need this coffee at 2:30 in the afternoon. That's so beautiful. Holy crap. A rare sunny day. This morning, I did something drastic. I went and applied for a warehouse job at a really big company, and they're pretty much hiring on the spot. So I got a job, which is good, but bad thing is, it's nights. So I'll definitely be testing my ability to stay awake and stay sane while trying to stay awake. And then I went and got a blood test, lithium levels, and I'm on 900, and last time I was on 900 I had a result that was too high. So we'll see what happens this time. And then I did something else that was drastic. I decided to return my iPhone X. It's really expensive, and I could have sold my old phone for a decent amount, but thinking about how I'm going to be working in a warehouse and realizing it would take me 100 hours to make up the cost of the iPhone, doing that math makes me realize that I should return it. I can always buy it again if I feel like I need it, but I didn't really think it was that great. Maybe because my mood sucks. The camera was better, of course. Oh, it's going that way, don't worry. And the other thing cool that happened is that my car turned 200,000 kilometers old. So it's been a pretty eventful day. Last night was a really awful day. I won't go into the details, but it's partly what motivated me to make a bit of money, so then that way if I want to do something I can, or if I need to do something I can, and I don't feel stuck and like I have $0. So now that I refunded the iPhone, I have a bit of wiggle room, and yeah, we'll see how that all goes. So I finally finished totally making this dark. I haven't tested it, but there's one like this over top one, and then I taped the sides, and then over that I overlaid a flap to prevent the light from coming out the side of the tape, and then I put this one over top, and then I put these little things to prevent any residual light. And as you can see, I'm using the blue light. And I've had that on for a while, but I didn't have it close to me. So I'm sitting here with it closer to me, and I've taken some of my supplements, the ones without food, and I think today I'm going to test taking 2 tyrosine, 1,000 milligrams, as well as DL-phenylalanine to see if it gives energy, because I might be working night shifts So this is part of transitioning into being a cog in the machine and accepting that, and seeing if I can switch myself over to night shift mode for a while. Might not be possible. Today I woke up at 11:30, so I would think I'd be able to stay up for 18 hours, but I'm just sleeping a lot, so I do have to shift my sleeping schedule. So yeah, using some of this capacity from the supplements to be a cog in the machine and be grateful for it. I'm out for a walk. It feels really good. There are going to be a few sunny days in a row. And I had a possible insight into why I'm really struggling living in a room and not having very much space. I think part of it is because my brain really does operate on seeing and not thinking about when it comes to daily stuff. So I opened the fridge and I saw that I had bought snap peas. I wasn't thinking about the snap peas. And if I didn't ever open the fridge again, I would never remember that I bought snap peas and think about it and then go and eat it. So I need to have a fridge with the food I want to eat laid out in the way that I want, so when I open it, it prompts me. And same with everything else. So it feels like I can't really operate because my mind is one with everything around me, and I'm not able to arrange those objects. It smells kind of weird in here. And then I also had a thought about how, well, what happened was I was washing dishes. I had some piled up that were in my room. And I made bok choy, a big pot of bok choy with some coconut oil and soy sauce to eat. And when I was washing the pot, I noticed that it didn't really feel heavy. Usually when I wash that pot, it feels heavy and I can't hold the handle and turn the pot to dump it out very easily. But I noticed that I was able to do that with my left arm quite easily, rinse the pot and dump it out. So I think this is a bit of an interesting clue, because as an experiment, I took 1,000 milligrams of tyrosine and 500 milligrams of DL phenylalanine, and then I also took 200 milligrams of SAMe, which are things that I'm not usually taking. Or I did take 500 and 500 of the DL phenylalanine and tyrosine yesterday because I was going for that interview. So today I took 1,000 of the tyrosine, 1 500 milligram DL phenylalanine, and also a little bit of SAMe, just to see what kind of energetic effects they might create, because I need that knowledge for this night shift thing that might be happening. And I sat with the blue light for a while, just finding out what's going to give me some energy to possibly get through this, because it'd be nice to be able to make a bit of money to have more options. And I finished the window darkness thing, and I turned the lights off, and it is black when there's sun on the other side, it is dark. So I did a good job, which will be good for the night shift. I'll come back home and then be able to have total darkness and trick my body into it being dark. But the weird thing will be is if I sleep all day, I'll see the daylight when I come out of work and drive. Then I'll sleep in darkness in my room. Then when I wake up, it'll be dark again. If I'm able to do this, I will be in darkness all the time. And that's not really ideal, but I think this time of year is an okay time to do it. It's cold outside anyway. There's not much to do anyway. So I'd rather get through it and then see what happens while it's winter time. So I've said this before, but hopefully this time I will do it, and I'm at the headspace to do it, which is learn how to take care of my body again. Though working nights really isn't that, but eating more vegetables. I've been eating a lot of junk fast food that is okay-ish healthy-wise, but I need to learn how to do that and learn how to do it within the context I'm in, which is not really having my own space. I realized I didn't plan that very well. I didn't think, okay, how can I do this? Though I probably did, I just kind of forget. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully I can save a bit of money, so then maybe then I can go on a magical lifestyle design journey. We will see. I haven't made a video in over a month because I did manage to work nearly a month on night shifts at that warehouse. I think I got through a lot more of that than I thought I would. But all I really did was sleep and work. And the few nights that I had off, I'd be up 9 hours watching Netflix, and then I'd go back to sleep. And then I quit when my seasonal contract ended. And it's taken me a few days to get my body switched back to days. After that last night shift, I stayed up all day. Then I slept all night, but then I ended up sleeping all day. All night and all day. So I was back on night being awake again. And yeah, stuff like that. And not much has happened because I've just been working. But it's been pretty rough. It's been a battle. Shortly after Christmas, I had another mini psychosis, I feel like. And it was weird because there I was walking through this warehouse, crying slightly to myself, feeling really suicidal, like I wanted to just jump off a bridge. And really seeing that as a viable option. And working. And today's the first day that I feel some form of relief. This morning I was sitting there and like breathing, feeling like I was breathing voluntarily. I'm feeling like cautiously optimistic that the worst is over. Feeling sort of as if, is it over? Is it done? And throughout the process of working, I got really good at walking. I was pretty much walking for 10 hours a night. So even though the work wasn't that fulfilling, it was good exercise. And something else I did recently that I didn't want to do while I was working was cold turkey onto lithium orotate. And I was kind of concerned about it, but considering I was feeling like crap anyway, and I have been for months, I figured I may as well try now, as opposed to if I started to feel better with the carbonate, and then trying it when I was feeling good and stabilized, which would, I think at this point, make me less apt to want to stir things up. I feel like now going for some kind of stability and balance would be really good. And my kidneys will be happy that I'm on lithium orotate. I cold turkeyed from 900 milligrams of lithium carbonate to 20 milligrams of lithium orotate. Well, it's 20 milligrams of lithium. So, yeah, I didn't really feel any weird effects from that, and I was surprised about that. So right now, in terms of meds, I'm on 50 milligrams every night of quetiapine, Seroquel, which usually antipsychotics are my least favorite medications. Historically, I've been on 600 milligrams of lithium and a bit of trazodone for sleep, and I went on like that for quite a long time. But now it seems like my brain is not able to taper off the antipsychotics, because when I had that mini psychosis, it was right after Christmas, and I wasn't sure if it was because I had a glass or two of wine on Christmas, which I haven't had in nearly a year, or if it was because one of the days before Christmas was the only time I switched myself back to being up during the day so I could go to a little dinner thing with friends. So that I worked that night, I think, and then I slept 4 hours, and then I was up during the day, and then I slept at night and all day. So I switched myself back to days for one day by having a short sleep, which I didn't do the rest of the time I was working. I just slept during the day and worked at night. Even if I wasn't working, I slept during the day and I was up at night. And then the other thing was that I had tapered slowly off the Seroquel, and I was down to maybe about a quarter or less than a quarter of it. And I wasn't really intentionally doing that. I just had a bunch of chunks of Seroquel on a note card. So I was slowly just taking smaller and smaller of the chunks until it was a pretty small chunk, and I don't know if it was that, but I felt the whole, like, my brain went into this space of not being able to fall asleep, and I took like 3 Seroquel or quetiapine of 25 milligrams and 2 melatonin. I was still laying there wide awake, feeling awful inside. And then the whole next day I couldn't really sleep. So that might have been, that was the night after the day I stayed awake and was with friends, and then that night I was trying to sleep and I couldn't. And then even though I was trying to sleep all day, I was half asleep, half awake, and then I had to go to work. And it was strange because I went to work after taking 3 or 4 Seroquel, a bunch of melatonin, not really sleeping, yet I was able to stay awake and function and kind of do my job, even though it wasn't easy, it wasn't fun. I was probably walking around the warehouse crying, feeling suicidal. So it was a bit of a gong show, but I was pretty determined to fulfill my contract in order to not mess it up, so that way I would be eligible to go back next Christmas season if I wanted to or needed to. If I screwed it up, then I'm pretty sure they just don't allow people to come back. So I wanted to at least have that option. So that's what's been going on. Nothing really exciting. This whole thing is weird and difficult, and this has been the most challenging ever, and I think I'll continue taking Seroquel. I took 2 last night, and I'll eventually get down to 1 and maybe down to half and just stay on half or 1, just enough to keep my brain. I think it has an oversensitivity for sure, and my mind's been obsessing about a couple things that aren't helpful, and I don't know why there's this attachment to this story, and it's really strange what's been going on in my brain, and it's miserable. And I'm hoping that I can move away from that, because I have periods of time where my brain doesn't go there at all. But yeah, a lot of feeling suicidal and feeling like I almost could do it. Feeling like it's for the best. But we'll see. My brain still doesn't feel very organized, or I really don't know. I don't know if I'll get back into talking to myself. I'm about to move to a not super ideal living situation, but okay-ish, and I might go back to California for a month, which would be cool, but my brain has been unreliable. But at the same time, for the last month, I've been doing these night shifts, so that proves that I can get through something pretty challenging. It was really challenging. And I'm wondering about what's going to happen next in life. I have several ideas and possibilities, but I think being happy with not feeling suicidal and miserable is a good start. I'm out for a walk on this rare sunny day. Feels good. Yesterday, I stayed in bed all day and watched Netflix. I was watching Embarrassing Bodies and something else. I don't know what else. Oh yeah, I was watching YouTube and I was watching the stories of different celebrity deaths like Heath Ledger, Brittany Murphy, Prince, who I'm not even a fan of, and someone else. So that's how I spend my time when kind of at the lowest in terms of motivation and whatever. But I did feel calm enough, I guess. But no motivation. Even though a day or two ago I made a video saying I felt like there was a shift. I'm feeling a bit more of that shift this morning, even though earlier when I woke up I was feeling kind of suicidal and defeatist and self-sabotaging. And today's the first day I feel like maybe I can take a trip to California for a month. So hopefully my brain is on the mend. And I was ready to give up on this supplement program, but it is possibly helping. Plus, I read over the instructions again and it said in 4 to 6 weeks. So it's only been probably 3 or 4 weeks. Though I'll probably drop some of the more expensive supplements, like when the CDP choline and the alpha GCP or something, whatever it's called, and the brain gastrodin run out. I might not replace them initially, see how I feel, because those ones are more like $30 a bottle, whereas the other ones are, 10 to 20. Uh-oh, is there a blockage here? This park's kind of in disarray from all the ice. There was a big ice storm. And this morning I booked an appointment to replace my iPhone battery for Saturday. And I think that's the first appointment I've put into my calendar in months, besides my psychiatrist here and there. And partly because I was working a lot. So it's cool to feel like I can make an appointment. I have a bit of motivation to change out my battery because it's cheaper now that there was that news about the slow phones, and I didn't even see it or anything, but a friend of mine told me about the battery replacement program. And it's nice to be out walking because I walked for 10 hours a day for probably 20 days. I probably put on many, many steps and miles, but I wasn't allowed to carry my phone with me, so I don't know for sure. There was no pedometer. And that's the one thing about now not working is I'll just spend a day in bed instead. So most things I talk about I don't end up doing, but I'm thinking I'll move to the new place, see how it is, go to California for a month, come back, and try and be normal and stable. Try and not get so angry and go so far into alternative perspectives. because the first 3.5 years of my journey, I didn't really do that, and I was okay. But then again, that's like saying there's some kind of cause and effect, and there's a way to prevent, and I don't know if there really is. And I finally got this multivitamin in the mail. It was out of stock on iHerb and not available on VitaCost. So I got it through an Amazon partner or whatever. And it was supposed to arrive December 20th, and it didn't. And it finally arrived yesterday, so that makes it almost a month late. And the program I'm on, it's important to have the cofactors and things that are necessary to make the neurotransmitters that the amino acids are for. So I've been taking standalone P5P or B6, folic acid and niacin, but I'm not having all the other stuff that's in this multivitamin, so that could be a limiting factor. I haven't been the greatest with taking the probiotic, and I forgot to take the turmeric along the way. It says to take that, so I took some of that today. And then something else it says to take that is a bit questionable for me is aspirin. So Peter Smith of Balancing Brain Biochemistry suggests taking baby aspirin. And he says if one is against that, to try it for at least the first couple months, because it helps to reduce the arachidonic acid in the brain, among other things, but that's what it's meant for in terms of this program. So I might try that. He says it helps to accentuate what the lithium orotate is supposed to do. And so I might try it. What I've seen on arachidonic acid, it's not the greatest thing, but what's interesting is it is involved in the anandamide pathway. If I'm not mistaken at this moment, arachidonic acid is a precursor to anandamide, which is the endogenous cannabinoid that we make. And I think, and some other people think too, that it could be partly involved in spiritual experiences or etc., like otherworldly type experiences, maybe psychosis. So that might actually help to keep the psychosis away, reducing the levels of arachidonic acid. So it's interesting how that gets higher in a bipolar brain, and then maybe at a certain amount it starts to be converted into anandamide. Something else that's involved in that is the black pepper extract or something, and also chocolate. So it would be cool to convert some of it into anandamide, maybe, as opposed to having it sitting around doing damage as arachidonic acid. I really don't know how it all works, but it's interesting that one of the things on the list of remedies from Peter Smith was this black pepper seed extract. It's supposed to help in some way. And then when I was looking at actual scientific research, it was saying that black pepper extract or something like that is involved in converting arachidonic acid into anandamide. There's also DMT. So we have these endogenous molecules that we make that are similar to the ones we take on the outside. So instead of taking some kind of outside drug, we can make those. So providing some of the precursors will help to make it or not. Something else that I haven't come close to mastering is the diet portion of this program, which is probably really important. For sure it is, because diet changes is what healed me when I had chronic fatigue years ago. And I have tried different diets along the way, so it's not going to be perfect, but 2 days ago I ate a whole bunch of dates. I figured, I'm going to eat dates and oranges and Laura bars because they require no cooking and I can just grab them and eat them. I ate a bunch of dates, probably like 8 to 10, which is a lot. And then I took vitamin C and lithium orotate and some fish oil, and I started to feel the body pain that I was feeling when this all started. And then the next day, in the morning, I ate a bunch of dates again. I ate probably 8 to 10 dates. Same thing. Started feeling that body pain, sort of slightly uncomfortable, and then thinking, oh no, is all of this starting all over again from the beginning? Because this is how I was feeling in the beginning of this. And I was wondering, is it because I switched to lithium orotate, or what the heck? So I was thinking more along the lines of the lithium carbonate to lithium orotate switch after the first time it happened, because I had taken the lithium orotate right after I ate the dates, so I didn't really know. But the next day, it was only the dates I had, and then I started feeling that body pain again. So today I was starting to think, well, what does that mean? Well, eating a high dose of sugar like dates, which is probably very readily available, probably higher on the glycemic index, I'm not sure, but I ate a lot of them. But what I was thinking is, maybe, and I'm totally making this up, maybe at the end of the manic period, maybe part of the reason why it comes to a close is the body sort of runs out of energy, and then maybe the liver is constantly dumping a whole whack of the glycogen storage to be converted to glucose in order desperately to get some energy in the body. So I think it has something to do with some kind of energetic process, the body running out of energy to keep that way of being going. So yeah, maybe at the end of that upswing, or maybe the part of the mechanism of the end is something to do with a lot of glucose being dumped into the bloodstream, but more as an attempt to get that energy. And maybe some of the body pain is the muscles releasing some of the amino acids, so muscle breakdown, in order to get those amino acids to create neurotransmitters in the brain. Or I have no idea. It just seems like something runs out, and then certain things build up to a critical point. I think there's something in biochemistry or enzymatics where you need a certain amount of a substrate before it really gets going. So one of the things that increases the rate of an enzymatic reaction is more of the initial substrates being available. I don't know, it just seems like some kind of transformation can't be completed. And that's at the biochemical level. Like, it's said to be a chemical imbalance, but maybe it's trying to shift. Like, certain conditions will produce more DMT and have mystical states. Certain conditions will produce more anandamide and have altered states as well. So what are these conditions trying to create besides psychosis and plummeting into a depression? Feels like being on the precipice of a new world. And I told myself I'd stop talking about this. Really, I just want to be normal. I'm kind of tired of this. Even watching whatever I've been watching on Netflix and YouTube, people talking and going through terrible stuff or good stuff, they just seem so normal. I just did 3 or 4 laps of the park. I lost count. I think it must be 4 because my step counter was up to nearly 12,000 steps. And my first lap of the park was 2,500-ish, so I must have done 4. So yeah, out of all of this, I feel like I just want to be normal. I just want to be stable. I don't want to be in a place that feels close to some other world and then drop down into prolonged confusion and fear and terror and anger and sadness and despair and loneliness and so many things. Even this morning when I was waking up, I was thinking about ending my life and feeling kind of comforted by that, feeling like I don't have to do this. I don't have to be here. And something else I watched yesterday, I don't even know why I watched it, was a video on the tsunami in 2004. And lately I've been watching some forensic files on Netflix and things like that, and so many people died in that tsunami. It's just incredible. Like, nature wiped out 250,000 people in a matter of hours. And then there's people on forensic files who lose their life due to the violence from other human beings, and it's just so confusing. It's just, yeah. And then there's the option of choosing when one leaves this earth by one's own volition. So yeah, I don't know what to make of it all. I'm in the infrared sauna, as you can see, and it's 113 degrees. And I guess I'll sit in here for 48 minutes. It seems I'm starting to do healthy things again, or gravitating towards that. Today I remembered to have turmeric powder in coconut milk, and I'm going to take the probiotic and I'm going to get better at that, especially because I started listening to the audiobook Brain Maker. The Kindle book was like $18 or something, so I signed up for a free trial of Amazon's Audible, and it's not unlimited. I do get one book, so I chose this Brain Maker book, And it doesn't talk about bipolar specifically, but it talks about mood disorders in general, like anxiety and depression. And I think it'll touch on schizophrenia at some point. But it's talking about how important it is to have a healthy gut, and I already know that. But that's one thing that I've been neglecting. And I don't want to think of this in terms of it's going to prevent something or fix something. Likely the struggles will happen again. Maybe they won't be as bad. That would be nice, because I've been not doing well since October 1st, and it's now mid-January. That's a long time. And I'm sure I've had struggles like that before when I've had, quote, relapses in the past. I do remember prolonged depression for several months, at least on 2 occasions, but I think it was easier because I had my own space to be semi-healthy, wallow, do the basics like grocery shopping and laundry, and not have to put on a happy face for others around me. Not that I was completely miserable, but there was no one around to project stuff onto, which made it easier. I was dealing with my own internal stuff, and it didn't get projected onto others around because there weren't others around. And that makes it more confusing, and it makes it harder because then in my not so good state, I have to attempt to fix if I don't respond perfectly to somebody, which if no one was around, I wouldn't have to do that. I wouldn't even have to try to think that and adjust myself. So today I feel better, like I can be around people, so there's not that feeling of, oh, I have to try to put on a happy face. It's just, that's fine that people are around. And usually that's how I am, but during those hard periods of time, it's really, 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 really challenging. And I really think that prolonged it even more. So, yeah. And yesterday I took my first baby aspirin, or I got a low-dose aspirin, no-name brand type thing, because it was cheaper. 81 milligrams. So I'll try that for a month at least. And it's hard to say whether I'm coming out of this naturally or I'm coming out of this more so because I've been on these extra supplements, and a lot of them, for the last month. But usually this only lasts 4 months max anyway. So it's really hard to say whether all this extra stuff is necessary or not. Though I think getting some healthy habits is good for long-term health, especially because I do seemingly have to take some kind of pharmaceutical. So being healthy is never a bad thing, especially because I've been watching that show Embarrassing Bodies, and there's a lot of people walking around with skin conditions and pain, and a lot of it I feel is a culmination of not taking care of oneself. It's easy to slap some steroid cream on some skin condition and watch it go away, but what is that saying about the overall health of the body in general? It's not good. And I don't have any problems with my skin or pain, so I'm lucky that way, and I look relatively young. I haven't really had as many comments lately, but in the previous few years, people think I'm like 25, and I'm 35, so that's good. And yeah, so Brainmaker book, I've wanted to read that for a while, so I'm listening to it, and it's good to learn more about this gut stuff and get it under control, because the gut-brain connection is a no-brainer. A no first brainer or second brainer, or saying that the gut is the first brain now, or what have you. And I need to figure out the diet thing. So maybe thinking about it in terms of mitigating the long-term effects of taking meds, and also maybe making the dips less. And something interesting on the Brainmaker book, he was talking about something called LPS, which is lipoprotein, I don't know, something like fat combined with protein and sugar. No, lipopolysaccharide, that's what it is. So fat and a sugar, I think. Might not be saying this right. And it's not good in the body, and the more there is, and it's attached to a bacteria or something, and then there's leaky gut, it can go into the brain. So the blood-brain barrier isn't as sturdy and fixed as they previously thought. It can get leaky too. So when that LPS gets into the brain, it causes inflammation big time. And so, without going into that too much, because I don't know it anyway, I looked up LPS and bipolar, and I came across a study. In the little Google headline, it talked about it a bit, and it wasn't really a paper about that, but it was talking about microglia in the brain, and how the microglia in the brain, when they get activated in a certain way with the inflammatory cytokines that can leak through the blood-brain barrier and activate the microglia become autophages, which means they eat or kill or induce apoptosis in brain cells. So this is interesting because I've talked a lot about brain cell death and neuroplasticity, and this paper links the neuroplasticity, the brain cell death due to autophagy, as well as serotonin and tryptophan. It was talking about how when the inflammation gets to that high enough point and the microglia get activated, tryptophan is no longer used to build serotonin. It goes into some other pathway. It was a IPO pathway or something, which it didn't really explain. But the IPO pathway, and it might be I something else. It's starting to get sweaty in here. It decreases BDNF. And what was the other thing that was in there that was really interesting? Oh yeah. It decreases something called GSK beta, I think it was. And these letters could be slightly off. And then I looked up, well, what does GSK beta mean? Or what does it stand for? And it's glycogen synthase kinase. And this is in the brain, but I found it a little fascinating, and I don't have enough knowledge and information to know for sure. Like, I don't speak that language of microbiology and not microbiology, neurochemistry and biochemistry fluently, but yesterday in my video I was talking about how it seems like there's something about how the glycogen gets dumped all at once or something, and that's something in the liver. It's not to do with the brain, but what I was thinking when I read that was if glycogen synthase kinase activity gets decreased in general in the body, synthase is synthesis, so glycogen synthesis, which is storing sugar. Maybe sugar stops getting stored. Maybe when there's inflammation, it's partly the biochemical level equivalent of fight or flight. There's like a war going on in our body at the cellular and biochemical level. So we're not going to be storing sugar for use tomorrow or the next day. We're going to be using it now to run or to fight. So I thought that was interesting because of how I felt that effect of having so much sugar in my system from eating all those dates, which is like having a big shot of sugar, which would be similar to if all of a sudden all of the glycogen got broken down into sugar and dumped into the blood, which when we exercise, we burn that off. So I'm wondering if in so-called psychosis or mania, we stop storing so much glycogen, or it's sort of dumped into the blood so we have access to that energy, but maybe at some point it runs out and we don't have access to enough energy. That's not the only thing, but it sort of relates in a way. So I was thinking, I wonder if, say, in psychosis, when I get switched into psychosis and I'm feeling that body pain, maybe partly it's like too much sugar. I wonder if I did high intensity exercise, if it would burn off that excess, sort of like when I ate all those dates. If I was to run a mile or something, or sprint for as long as I could, maybe that would burn it off faster and it wouldn't cause effects of having really high sugar, which is part of what is talked about in the Brain Maker book, talking about how blood sugar regulation problems cause brain problems. Like they're saying Alzheimer's is being called type 3 diabetes because of the blood sugar problems causing these problems in the brain. And I don't have enough knowledge or time to go into that. So on a small scale, small timeline level, there could be something going on with blood sugar during psychosis, and not in terms of, oh, I'm eating a bad diet all the time so it leads to psychosis, but I've talked about before how it's kind of like fight, flight, freeze, or free. And free is trying to free oneself of psychosis, which is partly the past, personal past, collective human past, and experiencing those things and feeling the terror and fear and hatred and everything around that, sort of the lower emotions coming in and having to deal with those and trying to get free. So mania is feeling free of it, and then that process eventually runs out of energy and there's a metabolic switch, and then we're returning to old physiology and brain cells are dying and there's inflammation and la-da-da. So I can see how a lot of it possibly ties together, and see if I can think of a way to put it all together. And it seems like I'm still going with this. And I made a time to see a friend for dinner and a time on Wednesday to meet a friend for coffee, so I think my brain's on the mend. Took a really, really long time this time, but that's the thing with it. It's not the same. I just did 2 laps of the park, and a friend texted me and said that Dolores O'Riordan died. And that's sad. Cranberries were definitely one of my favorite bands in my teenage years. One of my favorite songs of theirs is Ode to My Family. She had such a beautiful voice. And it's sad considering just a couple days ago I watched about 4 different things on YouTube about 4 different celebrities that passed away tragically and sort of mysteriously in some cases. And understand the things I say, don't turn away from me, 'cause I spent half my life out there. You wouldn't disagree. Just see me, just see, do you like me? Do you like me standing there? Do you notice? Do you know? Do you see me? Do you see me? Does anyone care? On happiness, where's when I was young? Okay, I stopped there. And after my infrared sauna, I had a little cocktail of 4 different probiotics that I have on hand. One is the one I got because of Peter Smith of Balancing Brain Chemistry, and I had one from Lou Corona of Pyridime. Another one, I don't know what it was, and then another one which was these ancient strains. I don't remember how I came across that. And then I had a shower, and about an hour later from taking the probiotics, I was sitting there emailing my brain twin, and I noticed a little bit of an anxious feeling in my guts. And it was something to make note of, because that's partly how this all started this time around, of this relapse or crisis, was this subtle anxiety in different parts of my body. So I need to be cautious that it's not starting again from that. But it definitely correlates with certain things like eating a bunch of dates. So things that I'm doing, eating too many dates, and then introducing this cocktail of probiotics. Since I'm listening to this Brainmaker book, and something entered my mind earlier today about causation and correlation and association, and thinking about, and I've talked about this with myself before, how it's not that a certain molecule causes something. I feel it's the microscopic correlate in a way. So feeling, say, anxiety on this macroscopic human emotion level, you can trickle all the way down to the probiotic level of microorganisms in the gut, and something's going on there in their interaction. Or something like thinking that, say, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, causes mystical experiences, or it is the tiny version tapered all the way up. So things started with, in evolution, started with I can't think right now very well, but like elements, the periodic table, and then went to compounds, and then molecules, and then biomolecules, and then biochemistry, and then cells, and blah blah blah, all the way up. So this physical manifestation that we experience as humans is mirrored, and the same kind of drama is playing out on the chemical level, the biochemical level, the microscopic level of the probiotics and things. So it's more like, in studies, they say, one study will say, oh, this fish oil makes this better, and this is associated with this, and this causes this, and this causes that. It's more like a state. So having certain chemical elements present, and all of it together trickles up to produce this effect at the human level that we experience. So in that way, by adding some of these little tiny things, we're increasing the likelihood of a combination that will lead to a trickle up effect in the manifest level that is quote unquote good or desirable. This book is talking a lot about the different probiotics and the combinations of them, and obesity, and the combinations leading to brain disease and things like that. So it makes sense. As humans, we can alter our experience by altering what we imbibe or consume. A deer isn't going to think, I'm going to take some marijuana to change my mental state, but we as humans can volitionally choose to do that. So we have that, and that's, I wouldn't say it's entirely uniquely human. I think there's evidence out there of animals doing different substances and eating certain plants to get a certain effect. Even dogs eating grass in order to throw up because of whatever. I don't know much about dogs. Is like the same as us taking in something to create a certain effect. So, in that way, why wouldn't we try to volitionally figure out what works well? And then another thing I thought of related to this whole introducing all those probiotics at once and the little anxious feeling was that it's sort of like on the microbiome level, or the level of the probiotics and microorganisms in the gut. It's like having a house party and then all of a sudden 1,000 different strangers show up. Those original people there would feel somewhat anxious and socially scared, or wondering what's going to happen, or what does this mean? Where did all these people come from? Why are they here? So if you think of this trickle up and trickle down mirroring, or I guess it's a holarchy or a hierarchy, a holarchy in a way. Things that are happening at the level of the gut are also happening at the level of our human experience. So I'm wondering if introducing all those probiotics gave my gut's current microbiota a little bit of anxiety and nervousness. And then I ate an apple and took my daily aspirin, which is something that I've introduced. This Brain Maker book talks a lot about inflammation, and aspirin is an anti-inflammatory, not one that I'd want to take long term per se, but I'll take it for now and see if it helps. And maybe it does. I've been taking it for 2 days, and the last 2 days I've had better days, and I've been taking the probiotic. So I don't know if it's causing that, or if I'm introducing those elements, which changes the overall everything. I'm changing the microbiome, I'm changing the chemistry of my guts and the whole body, and then my human experience changes. I'm also wondering if it has something to do with the whole bipolar psychosis mania thing, like a certain combination of the microbiomes going on, that there's not too much inflammation, so then there's a lot of BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor, and the brain's growing and everything's happening, and then all of a sudden, at some point, like a critical mass of something, the brain just can't grow anymore. It can't keep going, whether it runs out of energy or there's too many byproducts of the metabolism of that happening, whether it's something in the liver can't keep up. I don't know. Something entered my mind just now. The brain's trying to grow out of the self, out of itself. It's trying lots of different ways. So yeah, it feels good to have 2 days of not feeling trapped, not feeling angry, not feeling like I don't want to be around people. Like I need to stay in bed, and I haven't really had the suicidal feelings these last 2 days either. And I did have them quite a bit, so that's a shift. And if it keeps going like this, I'm not going to think in terms of it's never going to happen again, but that's a monster. Whoa. I think that was one of those monster transport army planes or whatever they are. I don't know much about that, but it's so fascinating how something so huge could fly through the air. So, yeah, I've said this to myself more and more, that I think I need to change my thinking from stopping this from ever happening again to being healthy, but not obsessively so in thinking, well, this is going to stop it from happening again. Still experimenting, but not thinking in terms of this is it. So thinking, well, I'm going to try see what this probiotic stuff does and get a healthier diet. Also do more exercise, be in my body, and do that stuff, like maybe develop a healthy routine again. And then enjoy the time when I'm well. Because the last time that I was well, when I tapered off, and I was off meds for 5 months, which was great. I think that was an accomplishment. I didn't use that so much as enjoyment, but going on a mission of some kind. Thinking, oh, this is the answer. This can help people, or so I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy that. I think I need to try to enjoy and see how that goes, and enjoy the next couple of years of still having youth to some extent, being 35, and focus on that wellness and maybe sharing just wellness in general rather than stopping this process, and then also realizing what makes it better, what makes it worse. Try not to think in terms of setting up a perfect environment for when things are not great. I think I could set up a better system for when things are bad. Like, think about what I can eat and how I can get access to that easily. If I can't leave my house for days, if I can look on Amazon Prime and see some canned food that I might eat that's a little healthy and get it delivered to me or something like that. Because what I experienced this time, since I went through it at home, since I tapered off meds, so I didn't want to say, oh my god, I've tapered off meds, and I didn't really tell anyone. Only my psychiatrist knows and a few friends, but my family doesn't even know. So that was part of the reason why I had to go through it even more by myself, because of the way it arose, even though historically it happens every 8.5 months anyway, no matter what I'm doing. So preparing for that next 8.5 month mark more intelligently, so then when it happens and I'm basically 100% non-functional, I can still eat, survive, not have to ask people to do something. Because there is the way of doing it where you can say, well, when I'm not doing well, I'm going to ask this person to do this and set it up beforehand, and that's a way to do it too. But I think I've gotten to the point where maybe I can get through it all on my own and not have people around and just get through it and not involve anyone, because it worries people. And this time around, it was this situation where people were around and I'm in a terrible internal mental state, and then that gets projected onto my interactions with people, like family and stuff, and it just makes it worse. I'm not saying they make it worse per se, but it's just an awful dynamic. So avoiding that and then seeing if it resolves faster. And, you know, maybe it'll resolve faster next time, and then time after that it takes longer. It's unpredictable for sure. But I think the suffering can be minimized, and putting extra suffering on others, and I can actually see myself apologizing to some of my family members when I'm feeling better, feeling back to myself, not feeling so much inner anger about the past. It's basically being under the influence of the past and projections. Even hallucinations and delusions are projections. And I didn't really have so much of that, but even thinking about the past and bringing it into the present moment is a hallucination. It's not happening now. And there's stuff that can't be changed. Things happen the way they happen, and on a certain level, when I'm doing well, I understand that, and I go on with life, and it doesn't really affect me. But then it's there, and at certain points it does trickle up to the surface, and I can see also, and I felt this time, that there could be something to resolving some of that, but I don't have the means right now. I think I need to focus on utilizing what I already have, the tools I already have, the things I already have, the people I already have, and not spend money on extra. Save the bit of money I have for things like maybe a stand-up paddleboard, maybe a car, a better car. Mine's showing signs of really getting to the end of its day, though it could last a lot longer. And also, if I need to move to a different place, having a little bit of a padding there, and maybe going to California for a month, coming back. I think if I'm feeling good, I'm gonna work on my appearance a bit in terms of just utilizing that as a way to feel good and express that I'm feeling good. Again, making the best of the good times and having fun and enjoying, and be embodied, enjoy the summer, and maybe look more at, okay, what kind of job can I do, and try and have kind of a stable life. And I don't really know what'll happen this year or how it'll turn out, but I do appreciate not having this extra pressure in my brain, and not sure what's bringing me out of it, if it's time, because I've come out of it before without taking all these fancy supplements. But I am going to continue with the very basics, like the multivitamin, the omega-3s, the probiotic. I think the amino acids are helpful. And that would be ditching a lot of the neuroplasticity, BDNF boosting stuff. But I think that happens naturally for me on its own once it gets going. Maybe save those for the time where my brain is obviously dying back. And I really can see something with this idea of the brain growing and being on the manic side and exploring and doing a lot and being curious and all those manic traits, and then how it just ends and one can't even move. It's like the brain is just, it's just stopped growing. It's retreating, and then that's what happens. One can't go anywhere, move, do anything. It's really awful. And this is getting long. I don't want my check-ins to get too long. I don't want this to be my one thing this year. I'm not sure what my one thing will be. It could be music production. It could be just being in the body, being healthy, being active. I remember last year researching stuff and saying to myself, I'm going to regret this because the sun goes away. Do some hikes. Don't be afraid of the wildlife. Get to speak that language of trying new hikes and trying new things outdoors and make that a really big part of my life. That's what I hope for, at least. I can sit and machinate all day long, and I think it would be great to save that for 10 years down the road. If I'm still alive, sit down with my notebooks and the research I've done and do something with it, but not now while I'm still young, and I somehow need to remind myself of that. And that's all I have for now. I might do another lap after I put this together. Thank you, universe, for making this stop.